The Denver Broncos weather the storm against the New York Jets and come away with an improbable win on the road to sweep the East Coast road trip. How did the Broncos pull it out? We'll highlight Bo Nix and what he did well in the second half, and Denver's defense coming up huge. Once again, we'll break that down and much more on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into a post-game report here, Locked On Broncos. Denver rallying the storm against the New York Jets to improve to 2-0 on their East Coast road trip, 2-2 on the season. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert over there, predominantlyorange.com. Broncos Country, thanks once again to all the everydayers out there. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss out on what's going on with your favorite team. To cover the wins, the losses, the highs and lows, all that, we have you covered here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The Broncos coming away victorious on the road in what seemed like for a good portion of this game, Sayre, seemed to be improbable. Seemed like anything that Denver wanted to do was going to take a clawing effort. That's exactly what happened in the second half as the Broncos weather the storm against the New York Jets. We'll go through and talk about everything from the defense's performance, the offense's performance in the second half, getting some things going, and is Denver's run game back? We'll break that down here on today's episode of the show, which is brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Sayre, what a roller coaster of a game here on Sunday. Denver going into the Meadowlands there and getting a victory against Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. And really, you have the defense to thank. My fiance, she's a Jets fan. She was frustrated by the outcome of this game. It was a little stressful there in those final 2 minutes. But you know what? Denver holds on for a much-needed win and a big win at that.
Not bad for the 31st ranked defensive line, according to Pro Football Focus going into the season, Cody. 14 quarterback hits on Aaron Rodgers, 5 sacks, and 0 touchdowns allowed in this game, not to mention 4 of 17 on third downs for that Denver defense. And hey, after the Jets, that one of those third down plays wasn't converted, the Broncos stopped them on 4th down as well with a sack by PJ Locke. So it was a dominating all-around performance by the Broncos defense. We've kind of gotten used to at least a drive or two in each game where the Broncos maybe giving up a few big chunk plays through the air or after the catch or on the ground, something like that. So the Jets did have a couple of decent drives in this game, but one of their only scoring drives in this game, Cody, was one in which the Broncos, Tyler Beatty, the unfortunate fumble, setting them up with great field position. So just a dominating effort by this defense overall. And it's really great because remember that Super Bowl 50 defense where you used to be able to kind of like, all right, the gravitational pull is coming from Von Miller in that defense. There isn't necessarily a guy like that on this Denver defense. The production is coming from all over the place, which you absolutely love to see.
That's the thing. Like, Denver is getting contributions from everybody. And look, the front seven so drastically improved. Denver's edge rushers, love to see what they're doing. And it's carrying over to the linebackers. It's carrying over to the guys inside the secondary. I mean, you talk about the guys in this game that had a sack. Nick Bonito, once again. John Franklin Myers had a sack. Jonah Ellis and Malcolm Roach combined for a sack late in the fourth quarter against Rodgers. PJ Locke with the 4th down sack that you had mentioned there early on. And then Justin Sternad, who got the start next to Cody Barton at inside linebacker, first play of the game, comes through and sacks Aaron Rodgers. John Franklin Myers put this out on social media last week. It's like Oprah. You get a sack. You get a sack. You get a sack. Denver's defense is playing with their hairs on fire. And look, I like the combination of aggressiveness and deception that they are playing with. You talked about the third down statistic. Well, you and I had previewed it earlier on the week. Coming into this game, the Jets offense was the number 1 offense on third down this season, converting 56.7% of their third down attempts. And Denver's defense had it very difficult for Rodgers. Like, there were a couple times he'd get outside the pocket, extend it with his legs, but then you have Zach Allen and the defense tracking him a little bit. But the biggest thing in this game that we talked about in terms of, hey, in order to come away with a win on the road, you had to find a way to limit the run game with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. And they did just that. Breece Hall in this game, 10 carries there for 4 yards. Braylon Allen had the most rushing yards there. Aaron Rodgers had the second most rushing yards in this game, but really a combined 38 yards between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. That's a really good run dynamic that those guys have there in New York. Denver came out in aggressive front and they shut that down. That was huge. And that's what helped them win this game.
This is the first time that the Broncos have shut down Breece Hall in their seemingly annual matchups at this point, right? Even the game in which he tore his ACL against the Broncos, I think he had an 80-yard touchdown run. So it's definitely one of those things to where, like, we went into this game believing, okay, hey, the Broncos defense, they can give this team a chance to win. Oddly enough, as I was doing the crossover on Thursday, Cody, with John, I was like, oddly enough, you kind of want to put this game into Aaron Rodgers' hands. You don't want Braylon Allen and Breece Hall running wild over the defense. And this Denver Broncos defensive front, Cody, I mean, they are so impressive. I mean, the penetration, Malcolm Roach, I don't think gets enough love.
No.
Podcast from me for sure. I know that I don't mention his name often, but he was coming into frame and he's a big guy. So when they're zooming in on Aaron Rodgers, I mean, 97 is taking up my entire screen at this point. The dude is big. He's nasty. I watched a play and he didn't even make the play, Cody, but I saw him. He's playing with such confidence that, and I hope people find this on the All 22 this week and post it, because there's a play where he goes right at his man. I can't remember if it was the center or the guard, but he just smacks him right under the, like right beneath his face mask, illegal play, but he smacks him and you could just tell he's playing with such confidence. He's like, I am more physical than you. I am stronger than you. And I'm going to win this matchup. The Broncos additions on that defensive line this offseason, I mean, hats off to Sean Payton and George Payton and the pro scouting department for identifying these guys, because it's the difference between this team being 2-2 and probably 0-4 at this point.
Well, and you factor in stopping the run has been a big priority, right? Because last year the defense got chunked up because they couldn't stop the run, and then when they would overcommit to the run, then you get hit on a pass. And Riley Moss continuing to play well, Patrick Surtain continuing to play well. I mean, you look at this game here, and obviously Garrett Wilson had one catch that was for 23 yards. That really kind of makes the stat line deceptive. That, in my opinion, I don't know how it got challenged. Well, obviously they said there was not enough evidence to overturn, but his knee clearly goes out of bounds there. So he finishes the game with 5 catches for 41 yards. You take away that play that honestly shouldn't have happened. Pat Surtain puts the strap on him in that game. Once again, a great performance by Denver's secondary, and they're just playing with confidence right now. You mentioned the front seven. The linebackers are playing free because they're not having guys get up to them and double team them. They're filling their gaps quickly, and then the secondary, when they're asked to cover, they're doing a great job of doing that. And once again, some disguised looks from Vance Joseph, dropping pass rushers on the outside into coverage, sending the linebackers here once again. But it was calculated throughout this entire game. Denver weathers the storm, but I really wanted to talk about this because this defines the game. We'll obviously talk about the offense. Sean Payton going for a little bit of a gamble late in the game. And I understand it. Look, you kick the field goal, you get the points. Okay, the Jets have to score a touchdown, understandably so. But my contention with that was I would much rather Denver play with how the defense was playing in this game. Punt the football away, give Rodgers a long field with no timeouts. I trust Denver's defense in that situation based on how they've played. The Will Lutz thing, I understand it. Like, this is kind of a lose-lose for Sean Payton. You kick the field goal, you make it, okay, it's great. Now that you have to play and prevent the touchdown. Understand that. What I didn't like is that Will Lutz this season, Sayre, has not attempted a 50-yard field goal, let alone the conditions were wet and rainy. Lutz missed it, and all of a sudden we started thinking like, oh, no, this is going to come back to bite the Broncos there. Greg Zuerlein, because the defense gets some stops. Greg Zuerlein's 50-yard attempt is no good. Denver holds on for the win. This was gutty at the end, my friend.
It really was. And I think that missed field goal by Greg Zuerlein at the end of the game was a little bit of a ball don't lie kind of a situation, because the Broncos had unfortunately run out of challenges earlier in the game due to a kind of an ill-advised challenge by Sean Payton and whoever is advising him on those challenges in the first half. But then the second half, the officials just incorrectly called Garrett Wilson inbounds on a play the Broncos had to challenge and then upheld the ruling. So the Broncos out of challenges. And then late in the game, Aaron Rodgers gets sacked by, I believe it was Jonah Ellis and
Malcolm Roach.
Malcolm Roach. And the ball gets popped loose, and Jonah would have had a scoop and score touchdown potentially that the officials blew the play dead. So I think the Broncos kind of robbed of a touchdown there potentially, or at least of, really controlling the end of game situation. So that was kind of a ball don't lie situation there, but really for this defense to be able to overcome a number of things in this game the way that they did, especially with the offense, not necessarily, the missed field goal that you mentioned from Will Lutz late in the game. It was just, you can't say enough about the job that Vance Joseph and this group is doing. It's been really, really great to see.
Nah, shout out to the guy at Buffalo Wild Wings for coming through for us there in terms of the control room there in this game. Absolutely. Denver needed it. Now the Broncos improved to 2-2. And look, it was a trudge to get there for the Broncos. And Bo Nix had a brutal first half, but found a way in the second half to get some things going. We'll highlight Nix's performance, where he excelled a little bit in that second half here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Broncos Country, today's episode of the show is brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. And look, Game Time, they make it easy for you to go see your favorite events, your favorite concerts, sporting events, whatever you have going on in your area. They have access to it through their ticket base there. And they also have a new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks, they filter out the fluff so that they only show you the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time filtering through and searching through thousands of different tickets. If you want to go check out the Broncos on the road, or whether they're back home, because they're coming back on Sunday to host the Las Vegas Raiders in Throwback Day, you can get tickets to that through the Game Time app exclusively. And one of my favorite parts about Game Time is that you can see your vantage point with seat views directly inside the app, so you know exactly what you're going to be getting when you arrive to the stadium on Sunday. So check it out here today. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time. What time is it? Game time.
After finishing the first half with -7 passing yards, Bo Nix came out in the second half, orchestrated a couple of scoring drives, and that's all the Denver Broncos defense needed to seal a victory to improve to 2-2 on this young season. It feels much better than it did a year ago at this time. Denver Broncos 2-2, heading back to Denver after an East Coast road trip. Cody and I are going to continue to break down the game, Bo Nix's performance, as well as the revival of the running game in this one. But I want to first say thank you to all of you that make Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. And all you everydayers, you know, we love to celebrate Victory Monday, Victory Sunday, whatever day you're listening or watching this podcast. Hey, welcome in. We're so glad that you're here. And if you haven't already done so, hit subscribe and do that both where you listen to podcasts as well as on YouTube. But Cody, we've got to talk about Bo Nix because -7 yards in the first half. I'm going to let you sound off on this one first because it really ticked me off to see a bunch of people on Twitter who checked out the box score and were poking fun at Bo. I mean, I know it wasn't a good first half from him overall, but to just screenshot the box score and not be watching the game, which obviously many people were not, it completely discounts the conditions of the game. You said weather the storm a number of times. Bo Nix was literally dealing with, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback have to dry off his hands as many times as Bo Nix did in this game.
Yeah, both he and Aaron Rodgers did it. And look, I know there were a lot of people who were like, whoa, Bo's an NFL quarterback. He should be able to play in the rain. And yeah, look, you've got to be smart in the rain, though. And I think so many people, look, as a coach, as a former coach here, our game plan anytime we played in the rain was to run the football, right? But what's the problem? Like, here's where Denver's struggle was in the first half. The run game wasn't necessarily there in the first half. And granted, look, he had Sayre Bedinger getting in there. He had the injury, got carted off. We still don't have an update on that. We'll keep you posted when we find something out. Sean Payton didn't give us anything after his post-game press conference there. We're just praying that he's okay. But Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin were the only two guys who could get carries at that point outside of Michael Burton. But there was no run game there in the first half for Denver. And so all of a sudden, now you have a rookie quarterback who is playing one of the NFL's top defenses coming into this game. The Jets defense, 7th ranked in net yards per game allowed, allowing 280 yards through, the entire game. They're one of the top 5 in terms of passing yards allowed, 150.7 yards allowed per game coming into this matchup. DJ Reed having some big plays there. Sauce Gardner obviously still playing pretty effective here. Denver, Bo Nix, they faced not only just the weather conditions, but an elite level defense. And they were able to find some things going in the second half. And I put a tweet out there at halftime. I said, look, obviously this is a rough game for Bo so far to start. But this is what you talk about when you have a rookie quarterback that, okay, hey, just last week after he went on the road to Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay kind of mollywopped the Eagles a little bit. Baker Mayfield was cooking. Denver's defense stopped Baker Mayfield. We know Denver's defense is legit, right? But Bo Nix and the offense capitalized on opportunities against Tampa Bay last week. And then this week against an elite level defense here once again. They had struggles until the second half. And I said, you're going to have to live with the ups and downs. It's not just going to be Bo's going straight up. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. It is a roller coaster. And development, as you like to say, I'm stealing your phrase here, is never linear. It is a winding road here, and you have to live with that. And then what did we see Bo do in the second half, Sayre? I thought he came out and responded well. Granted, there was one play where it looked like the play clock, at least on the CBS broadcast, was double zeros. He ripped an absolute shot across the middle of the field to Courtland Sutton for a 27-yard gain, and that orchestrated a scoring drive that was so needed by Denver to get a 7-6 lead in this game. 11 plays, 87 yards, good composure, and capped off by who? Bo Nix throwing a touchdown to Courtland Sutton, who once again finds a way to get both feet in as he normally does here. That was gritty. That was braving the storm. That was weathering the storm here. And Bo Nix and the offense did just that.
I was holding my breath a little bit, Cody. I usually celebrate right after touchdowns happen, but I was holding my breath. I'm sure a lot of Broncos country was watching Courtland Sutton try to get those toes in for that first touchdown from Bo Nix. But thankfully, Sutton did his thing after I think he dropped the pass right before that. So he made a play for his quarterback, and Bo needed him to do that because it really, I mean, and the ball was in the area, and you got to come down. You got to help out your young quarterback. And I think that's become a theme for this Denver Broncos offense, that the arsenal of weapons that they have, Cody, helping out the quarterback has not been their forte this season so far. So to see that play, the couple of plays that we did see from Courtland Sutton was really nice because Josh Reynolds had a big drop late in this game that could have been very, very costly. We didn't see, I mean, Greg Dulcich, the guy is invisible out there. The Broncos running backs continue to struggle gaining yardage after the catch. So it's just one of those things that's like, okay, is this the offense scheming guys open? Is it working? Is it just Bo being inaccurate at times? Because he was inaccurate with the ball at times in this game.
Fair.
There's no question about it. But again, it's his fourth game. It's his fourth NFL game going up against a gauntlet of defensive coaches. The Jets going into this week have one of the highest pass rush win rates of any team in the NFL. And I will point to the box score for anybody that likes to box score scout a little bit. How many times do you figure Bo Nix was sacked in this game, Cody, against one of the best pass rush win rate teams in football going into the week? That would be a big 0 on the board there. So 2 weeks in a row, Bo Nix has not been sacked. 2 weeks in a row that he has not turned the ball over. So I, for one, am encouraged by this game overall because in the elements, what do you expect from the guy? I mean, has anybody ever tried to go play football with a giant bar of soap, outside in the rain? I mean, that's tough to do. And I know, yeah, he is an NFL quarterback. I'm not trying to make excuses for the ball sailing on him or being inaccurate with passes or, this, that, and the other. But to see what he did on the road after negative passing yards in the first half, which, again, I mean, you're trying to get the quick game going. You're trying to gain yardage after the catch, and guys are doing absolutely nothing. So I don't know what everybody's expecting from him at this point, but to get this win on the road, multiple scoring drives late in the game, setting up a potential field goal there to go up 4 at the end. I mean, I know he didn't necessarily do much on that drive other than the pass to Javonte Williams to get a little bit closer, but you get what I'm saying. And I think everybody out there has just got to kind of chill a little bit when it comes to, man, Bo's not throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns every game right now. What the heck is he even going to be our quarterback going forward? Like, man, what do we expect from the rookie out there? He just won a road game against the New York Jets, and the Broncos are 2-2. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Against one of the NFL's best defenses, he did just that. And look, I think people get caught up in what's more important. Like, what do the Broncos need more? Do they need Bo to throw for 350 yards? Like, Bo threw a touchdown. He finished the game with 60 yards passing. Okay, there's that. But there's also plays where he uses his legs. But you mentioned it. Not sacked. Didn't turn the ball over. That's what wins you games. You have good defense. You find a way to capitalize when it matters. And look, Denver overcame. They were 0 for 7 in the first half on third down. They finished the game 3 of 14. So a little bit better in the second half in comparison to the first here, but a tough test against them defensively. I like how he responded, and the weather should be pretty nice in Denver next week when the team hosts the Las Vegas Raiders here. Gritty, gutsy win here for Bo Nix and the Broncos. The offense finding a way to rally. And look, part of that being possible was made possible by Denver's run game kind of getting reinvigorated. Javonte Williams looking a little bit like his old self in the second half for the Broncos. We'll highlight his performance and how Denver can build off of that here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode of the show was brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. And as you all know, at FanDuel, they are America's #1 sportsbook. And with the NFL season being here, they want to give you a chance to win with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If you want to get involved in making a parlay, if you want to bet on a team outright on the money line, you are more than welcome to do that inside the app. Some of the things that I do consistently on a week-to-week basis, I'll throw $5 or $10 on an anytime touchdown bet, or if I like to get a little bit more invested in it, I always like to throw $10 on who I think is going to score the first touchdown of a game, and you can do that directly inside of the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So make sure you get started here today, and when you get started, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Once again, you place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed that you can use on money lines, point spreads, and more inside FanDuel Sportsbook. So visit it, check it out today. Go to FanDuel.com. Once again, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. The Broncos' run game has been inefficient so far throughout the entire season, up and down moments here, but it looks like and feels like they got a little bit of momentum going into the second half that maybe they can ride into next week's game against the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll break all that down here on today's episode of our Locked On Broncos post-game report on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks once again, Broncos Country, for tuning in and making us your first listen. We appreciate you so much. Subscribe or follow if you want daily conversation, objective coverage of all things orange and blue here. We talked about the offense, finding a way to get in rhythm a little bit in the second half, Sayre. Certainly Bo Nix, a big key in that. But really, the run game opening things up as well, I think, is where Denver took advantage, because really coming into this game, as we had highlighted, the Jets defense, they're not bottom ranked, but they're 22nd in terms of stopping the run this season so far through the first 3 weeks of the game. Tyler Bede, who we had, imagine was going to have a little bit of a bigger role. He catches that screen pass out of the backfield from Bo Nix. It loses a few yards, which led to the -7 here in this game. Gets hit in the back and fumbles. But then all of a sudden, the defense is on the field, like, okay, a brutal turnover right there. And all of a sudden, the camera on CBS shows Bede on the sideline being put on a stretcher. Very, very scary scene. And obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with him. We have no update. We'll wait to hear. Hopefully something. We'll have some good news. Hopefully an NFL insider can put something out there, because Sean Payton wasn't putting anything out there. But just a very, very scary scene there. And all of a sudden, the Broncos running back room dwindled down to 2 players. Well, I felt like Jaleel McLaughlin really kind of jump-started it, and Javonte Williams kind of carried it as well, really in that big-time drive that we talked about to give Denver the lead in this game. 35 of his 77 yards came on that drive, Sayre. He had a 9-yard gain, a 9-yard gain, and then a 16-yard gain on that. Is this a formula that maybe Denver can open things up against the run, to run the football here a little bit more effectively? I mean, I liked some of the designs. You had some outside shots, but mainly Denver was hitting inside the A and the B gaps here in the second half.
And they were getting within scoring range pretty much all throughout the second half, Cody, because of that running game jolt that they got. And I think, to me, it was the most encouraging signs that we've seen from Javonte Williams in over a year, if not longer. Yeah. I mean, it was one of those games that's like, okay, you may not have made me a believer just yet, but you really, I mean, that was the closest that we've seen Javonte to looking like the guy that the Broncos drafted back in 2021. I mean, he was running physical. He was hitting lanes. He was reading blocks. He was showing off the vision. He was holding the ball high and tight, because that's been a problem as well. So, you know what, like, the encouragement from the offense in the second half of this game, given the conditions of the first half, like, I wouldn't be tripping if I'm in Broncos country right now over the fact that the offense looked bad in the first. The Jets offense looked just as bad pretty much in the first half. They were gifted 3 points and only got 3 more on their best drive of the game up to that point. So to me, I would be really encouraged by what the offense did, especially the running game. I mean, we've seen this type of performance from Jaleel over the last year. We haven't seen this from Javonte Williams, just flat out. I mean, 4.8 yards per carry, 77 total yards, a long run of 16. I mean, somebody's going to dig up the stats at some point this week. You and I will take a look as well, but I can't remember the last time Javonte had a run longer than 15 yards. I can't remember the last time he averaged over 4 yards per carry in a game. And to me, that was what jump-started the entire offense in the second half, is just being able to say, all right, we can hand it off to he moved the chains on a number of occasions. And I mean, it was so great to see that burst from him, the ability to create after contact a little bit, grinding out tough yardage, not just running into guys at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was the most encouraging performance he's had in a long time.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Denver's drive started off because I think the Jets punted it, landed on the 13-yard line, started with a false start by Garrett Bowles, and then they were able to march down the field there. I mean, it was just a collective performance here. But you mentioned like Javonte in this game, 16 carries. I don't think Javonte's had a game this season where he's had 10 or more carries so far. I think this was the first one, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to go back and double check, but it seems like it's been a while since that's been the case. And also the rushing output for him has been very low, like 1.3 yards per carry. I think that was his average coming into the game. And all of a sudden now Javonte can build some confidence off of this performance. I think the offensive line did a really good job at times, but you just got to try to find a way to stack consistency here. And look, I think when you get Javonte, the big bruising physical back, being able to break off some of the runs and use a spin move from time to time, the way that we saw him on Sunday, and then you come in and you have Jaleel McLaughlin with the speed dynamic, this is really what helps open things up for Denver's offense and what can open it up for them going further. It's just about sticking with it. I think the game plan offensively looked entirely different than what we saw against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? In terms of the passing design of the offense. Look, in the first half, Bo Nix took a couple of shots, but they didn't really come out trying to run the football in the rainy conditions early on the way that they should have. And then they kind of found themselves in a little bit of a hole because Sayre, all of a sudden, we're back to thinking 3-0, Denver trailing feels a little bit like a death sentence for them. Luckily, they were able to weather the storm. That's the theme of this show here today. And the run game was a big proponent of it. And now I think we just await to see, what's going to happen here with Tyler Bidet. We're waiting his status there. But right now, Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin will probably get the bulk of the carries here, especially as the Raiders get ready to come to town this week.
Yeah, 100%. And you want to be able to build off that second half in this game against the Jets, against the Raiders. You want to be able to run the ball that effectively all season long because, look, the Broncos, they outgained the New York Jets significantly on the ground in this game. 126 rushing yards for the Broncos, 64 rushing yards for the New York Jets. And look, I mean, that is a formula for success when your defense is stopping the run and rushing the passer and you're running the ball well. Like it's no coincidence that the Broncos are 2-0 in their last two games and that they've been able to do that in consecutive weeks.
What did Sean Payton say in the offseason? The two keys to helping a rookie quarterback. What did he say that those were? It was a strong defense and the ability to run the football, both of which reared their heads in the second half here for Denver. And Bo was able to get a couple of throws going and get into rhythm. Obviously, his first career passing touchdown. But I think more importantly, Denver leaving New York, leaving this East Coast road trip 2-0, and now you get to come back home. Now you're 2-2 on the season. The vibes feel a little bit different now as the team gets ready to don the throwback jerseys this upcoming week here. And look, gritty, gutsy win here once again, Broncos country. It wasn't pretty, but Denver found a way to get it done on the road against what I feel like will be a pretty good opponent, the New York Jets. Obviously, that defense, very, very good. I think the Jets will continue to get better as the season progresses here, and this will be a win I think we look back on at some point this season and say, hey, Denver needed that type of win, especially an AFC win on the road for that matter. That's huge for the Broncos. But with that said, that'll wrap up our post-game report here. Broncos country, appreciate you so much. For all you everydayers out there, tomorrow's episode of the show, Sayre, myself, we're going to go back, we're going to watch the film, and we're going to hand out game balls on offense and on defense, as we also get some more updates from Sean Payton, who will meet with us Monday morning in a press conference call ahead of the Raiders week. We'll break all that down for you on tomorrow's episode, Locked On Broncos. Thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen of the day, go check out the brand new Locked On NFL. What is the aftermath after week 4 of the action? Some upsets, some wild games, and some thrillers. And, of course, injuries continue to pile up. Check out all the action on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts or available on YouTube. We'll see you tomorrow.